Welcome back. Thank you once again for joining us. Today, President Jacob Zuma will attend the inauguration of the president-elect of the United Republic of Tanzania, His Excellency Mr John Magufuli. The United Republic of Tanzania held its general election on the 25th of October, which included presidential elections, parliamentary elections and local polls as well. The National Election Commission announced the results of the presidential election on the 29th of October, with Mr Magufuli emerging as the winner of the presidential election by 58%. Now, Izak Khomo is a producer on Channel Africa program Spotlight Africa, and he also grew up in Tanzania. He joins us now to discuss the issues a little bit more. Very good morning to you. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
It was a little bit nerve-wracking watching the election process, hearing the two sides confidently boasting about how they believe they were going to take the hot seat and that they were not going to accept any defeat whatsoever. But elections went smooth, a winner was chosen, and it seems everybody has accepted.
Oh yes, everybody accepting that in Zanzibar the elections had to be annulled, and they're going to have more elections, fresh elections after 3 months. Yeah.
And what was the reason for that?
Well, the Zanzibari Independent Electoral Commission said that there were some misdeeds, and actually sort of say that they sort of annulled, they just led to the annulling of the election. And
the results, they won't weigh in on.
They won't weigh in, yes, because there are about 500,000 registered voters there. So I think with the majority that has been obtained from the mainland, it will not change the presidential elections anyway. But then the Zanzibaris are up in arms. Because people are expecting that the CCM party, the ruling party, was going to lose the elections, and the outcry of corruption, fraud and things like that.
How have they performed year on year to date?
Who's that, the ruling party?
The ruling party, yes.
Well, the ruling party, not even year to year, I would say over the last 50 years, as your introduction said. But in the last 5 or 10 years of Jakaya Kikwete's rule, things have got tough in Tanzania. Inflation has gone up, and the poor have got poorer, although the country has got something about a 7% GDP rate increase. That has not filtered down to the local people. And that actually sort of contributed to the coming up of the opposition party. And mostly the unemployment amongst the youth, mostly the youth, they are the people who are really supporting the opposition party. But there again, you find that the CCM ruling party, it is still able to maintain its die-hard supporters, who are basically rural-based people. Tanzania has got about a 70 to 60% rural population. They won the elections by 58%, so it shows that there's not much of a swing of the rural vote. But in the urban areas where unemployment is really bad, that's where you've got where the opposition is very strong.
Another hot topic, or more, two more, were the issues of corruption as well as inequality. They were big talking points in the build-up?
They were big talking points. I mean, to say that, especially corruption. Well, corruption has always been there, but now corruption on top of poverty, it actually makes the thing, it takes it up on the agenda. And corruption is a very big thing. I mean, the CCM party faces a lot of corrupt issues in the last 5 years. The corruption around the power, the power stations, and that involved ministers. Ministers had to resign. At one time, there was a Minister of Finance, Mustafa Mkulo. Funny enough, he was an acquaintance. We worked together in Tanzania. He had to resign. Yeah, and there were many things which actually sort of touched, not directly, but grazed, went towards Kikwete. And basically, that actually put Kikwete or the CCM in a very tight situation when it had to choose a presidential candidate. They actually jumped the popular CCM candidate, who was Edward Lowassa, and they appointed a minister of works, the gentleman who won, that is Magufuli, John Pembe Magufuli, Pombe in fact, Magufuli. I mean, he was the only minister who seemed to be fighting corruption when he was the Minister of Works. So they actually had to pick a person who was not who was not actually popular, but who had
was clean as far as the
a
public
track
image was
record of
concerned,
fighting corruption, and they put him there as a presidential candidate. And that actually almost split the party, because you find that Edward Lowassa, who was the most popular candidate, walked out and joined the opposition. Yeah, so corruption was a very big thing.
Also, a very interesting aspect are the gender dynamics now. We're seeing a positive gender victory. The country is welcoming its first woman vice president, I believe, Dr. Asami Hassan Sisulu.
Yes, Suluhu.
Yes,
Dr.
Suluhu, yes.
Suluhu.
We put an extra LU there.
LU, yeah. Suluhu, Samia. Yeah, she's a Zanzibari, and that it's a move which is actually sort of in line with general trends on the African continent. Yeah, and that it's always been there. Tanzania's got a very good track record of actually sort of fighting for gender equality. It would remember that thing in 1969, there was what they called the Musoma Declaration. With the Musoma Declaration, it was a declaration by the ruling party then, which was TANU, Tanzania, the predecessor of CCM, where they actually sort of put in laws, enacted laws. I mean, suggested, and those laws were enacted. One of the laws was the recognition of women's rights in a relationship. Yeah, that where you've got a common law relationship. Once that was over 18 months, the whole thing was taken as we are together in community of properties, which was very good. And then there was the empowerment of young girls in education. Yeah, they were actually sort of reserved places for young girls going to secondary school, because there's a very big examination. Yeah, it's not all the primary school kids who go to secondary school, but there was a quota which gave advantage to women. And the same thing was actually there at the university level, which was free. Yeah, women were given space, more space than men. And that was in 1969. So CCM has got a track record basically of empowering women.
Let's speak about some of the people who will be in attendance at the inauguration today. Maybe that's why I said Sisulu, because I know of the close relations between South Africa and Tanzania. Tanzania being one of the frontline states that were very pivotal in the emancipation of the majority of people in South Africa. We know President Jacob Zuma will be there. Which other heads of state do we expect to be in attendance?
Well, the way you could look at it, just look at it that Tanzania is a member of two regional bodies. It's a member of the East African Commission. There's a group which has got Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda. Yeah, those leaders will be there. They're invited. And funny enough, Kagame and Nkurunziza will be there. And then Tanzania is also a member of SADC, and the SADC leaders will be there. So just look at the SADC leaders that are invited and will be there, and the East African community leaders. And maybe there'll be others from other AU countries. Yeah.
Let's try and look into a proverbial crystal ball and plot the way forward for the incoming head of state and some of the key points that he needs to focus on. You spoke about things like corruption, about poverty, inequality, etc. But when it comes to managing the discontent in his own party and also drawing support from the cabinet members to make sure that they believe in his vision, do you think he's up for the task?
Yeah, he's up for the task. I think the discontent within the party, most people, I mean, the discontented parties walked out. Yeah, they resigned openly. And I think that was good riddance, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. The character like Edward Lowassa, who was the main candidate for the opposition, who was adopted by the opposition, well, he's got a tainted track record. And there are others who actually walked out, like the former Prime Minister, well, I forget his name, but I remember it. He also, Sumai, he also walked out. Yeah, and others. But then that basically it will actually mean that there will be less pushing and pulling within the party. The people have just got themselves out. It's like what we had in South Africa with the cope people.
Yes.
People who couldn't cope and went down the slippery slope. Sorry about that.
It rhymes too. Yes, those who were in cope went down a slippery slope. Okay, but let's leave it there at least for now. It seems like he's equal to the challenge. The road ahead is long, but it begins today with his inauguration. But thank you so much for bringing us some context with regard to that. We're going to take a quick ad break, and when we come back, a little insert for you.